This video is sponsored by Mark 7 Car Wash Equipment, providing clean, dry, shiny cars for over 50 years. Visit mark7.net for more information.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Unscripted, the video series that connects you with market leaders. Today on our Unscripted video, we're happy to welcome Bud Abraham, a car wash and detailing consultant with over 50 years of experience in both industries. Hello, Bud. So great to see you today, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Sounds good. Well, today, Bud, we're here to talk about the topic of properly shampooing automotive carpets and cleaning fabric upholstery. And I know these are soft areas that absorb a lot of the odors in cars. So definitely a prominent issue for vehicle owners out there. So my first question for you, Bud, is what is the correct process for cleaning automotive carpets and fabric upholstery?
Well, Rich, like so many industries, you ask 10 detailers the process, and they'll probably give you 10 different answers. And a lot of the processes have come over time, and guys don't, detailers don't think. They think with their memory, and they keep doing things that they did in the past when materials have changed. Now, most of my research on carpet and upholstery cleaning, fabric upholstery cleaning, was done through the Professional Carpet Cleaning Institute to find out what professional carpet cleaners are doing. And residential and commercial carpeting is not a whole lot different than automotive carpeting. So I want to say that while I have an opinion, and what I'm going to give you today is my opinion and what we've used over the years in our own stores, detail stores, and in teaching people to clean carpets, and it's worked. So people can take what they want, leave the rest, or take none of it. But what I've learned is a few key factors that people can't argue with, and that is that they've determined that about 85% of the soil in carpets is dry. And in some cases, in automotive carpet, it's even higher than that. And that's important to know. And that the other 15% is oily. And what I mean by that is that the fibers of the material are coated with an oily substance. So you need to really understand that when you then when you go to clean either the carpets or the fabric upholstery. So number one, the most important thing then when you're dealing with 85% or more of the soil being dry is you got to really spend some time with a good vacuum getting as much of the dry soil out of the carpet. And it makes sense when you think about it. If you right away start using an extractor and squirting water into the carpet to clean it, you're really basically turning that dry soil into mud. So it's very important for that first step to thoroughly vacuum the carpet. Then once you've done that, you really should look for stains and spots that are not going to come out with the normal shampoo process. And of course, that comes from experience to know that a particular shampoo and your friction shampooing will take out most spots. But assuming that they don't, then you should, at this point, after you've vacuumed the carpets really well, you should attack, as I call it, each individual stain. And for the record, there are 6 kinds of stains. There's protein stains, which would be like foodstuffs, blood, ketchup, mustard, that kind of thing. They're or we call those organic stains or protein stains. There are non-organic stains, which would be like tar and grease and that type of stain. There are tannin stains, which are coffee and tea. They're red dye or juice stains. there are rust stains, and there's pet stains. And again, from my experience in working with chemists, each of these stains requires some different chemistry to remove them. Even within the red dye, there are two types of red stains. They actually have in the professional carpet and upholstery cleaning industry, they have two different red dye removers. And the important thing too about stains is not to scrub them. Guys hit them with well, what it does is, especially with ink, it spreads them. So you've got to, we won't get into the detail of that, but you've got to try to maintain the stain where it is and kind of blot it out. And then actually what professionals do is they use a small, they call it a spotter, which is a small extractor, and they use that to get the stains out. So once you vacuum, once you've treated the stains, then you spray a light foaming shampoo on the carpets. Now, what I mean by foaming is that some shampoos are made to foam and some aren't. So you want a foaming shampoo, and what the foaming shampoo is designed to do, that's to attack the oily soil on the fibers. And what that does is a light. You don't need a lot. You just use enough spray, enough chemical to emulsify or melt, if you will, the oily soil on the fibers. Then your friction shampoo, your friction scrub, where you can use a hand brush, you can use a small pneumatic air tool that's equipped with about a 5-inch scrub brush. And now what's quite popular in the industry, somebody was bright enough to come up with a drill brush attachment that you can hook into a cord. Most of the guys, I think, use cordless screwdrivers, and they just shove that thing in and they can friction shampoo. Now we've used these pneumatic rotary shampooers since 1980, and it's just now starting to become popular with this drill brush because most detailers couldn't afford an air compressor, so they didn't have a compressor that would power an air tool. But what that does, what that friction shampooing does by hand or by machine, what that does is that foams up the shampoo that's sort of emulsified the oily soil, and it picks up that oily soil and puts it into the foam. So the important thing at this point is to now use an extractor. And a lot of fellows don't use extractors, and they come up with a lot of reasons. And the bottom line is one of two reasons: they can't afford an extractor, or they think it takes too long. They're always in a hurry to get the car done instead of doing the job right. So once you've done the friction shampooing and you've created a little bit of this foam, then I give you the example. It's like getting into the shower.
Okay.
You get your body wet, you put shampoo in your hair, you put soap all over your body. In some cases, people use a sponge or a little scrub pad, or what do they call those Swedish things? Those,
like a loofah?
Yeah, loofah. They'll use a loofah, to clean the dead skin off their body. Then they get out of the shower and wipe all that off with a towel. Of course they don't. You obviously have to rinse all of
Sure.
that soap off. But this is what you do when you don't use an extractor. After you've sprayed, you put shampoo into the carpet and you've scrubbed it, you got to rinse out all that residue. And if you use just a vacuum to take out that residue, then you're leaving soil and shampoo residue in the carpet or in the fabric upholstery. And
Okay.
what happens, while it may look clean, when it dries, it creates a sticky film on the fibers. And then you have what happens again in the professional industry, they call resoiling. because that sticky substance that's now on the fibers just attracts dirt like a magnet attracts metal. Or there's another process. I'm not sure what the scientific explanation of it is. It's called wicking.
Yeah.
And if you leave dirt in the fibers or in the backing, when it dries, it just elevates to the top. So you can have, say, like a tan carpet that you clean and it looks really good. And you come back an hour later and you look, well, it's right where I cleaned is dirty again. That's because the soil that you didn't get out wicks to the top. And so that's why the extraction process is really important in ultimately getting a clean carpet. And you have to, so that said, it's really important that you don't attack a carpet or upholstery with the extractor before you vacuum, because you really got to get that dry soil out before you put any wet soil in there. And you don't want to oversaturate. Now, the other thing I forgot to mention in using an extractor is that you want to make sure that you do not use a normal foaming shampoo. You don't want foam in your extractor. They do make what's called an extractor shampoo. And whereas a regular shampoo might be a 7 or a 10 or maybe a 15-to-1 dilution, the extractor shampoo is 50 to 60 to 1. And it's just got enough cleaning agent in it that it helps rinse clean that oily soil that you've emulsified into the foam. And of course, the extractor companies will tell you don't use foaming shampoo in the extractor because those suds will get sucked up into the vacuum motor. So you want to use a non-foaming shampoo. So that pretty much is the process. I think what I see is the correct process for cleaning carpets. And you can come out, if you do everything correctly, you can come out with a really clean, unstained carpet.
Got it. Yeah, and it'll stay that way and not have that reappearing spot once you get all of that out. So, Bud, you mentioned an extractor a few times. How can a detailer ensure that he or she chooses the best extractor to clean carpets?
Well, let's see. How would we go about that? Well, I kind of liken it to buying a car. We'd all like to have a Mercedes, but we can only afford a Volkswagen. And so I think there are several things that I suggest to a detailer when and even a car wash operator, when they look at buying equipment for their detail, piece of extractor equipment for their detail shop. What can they afford, or how much do they want to spend? Because that makes a big difference. And probably the least expensive extractor that you can buy that's still commercially going to do a good job for you is probably $500 to $600. A lot of fellows on some of the detail sites talk about buying, and I hesitate to use a brand name, but they seem to use a brand name all the time just because it's kind of generic, but they'll buy these Bissell, they're residential carpet, and they're called Bissells, and guys say, oh yeah, buy a Bissell. Well, they're okay, but the problem with a residential extractor like that, they're designed for once in a while use. And if you use it 2 or 3, 4 times a day, 5 days a week, you're gonna wear the thing out, and you're not gonna get, most of them don't have heat, so you're not gonna get the advantage of heat with your extractor. And they say that for every degree of heat that you have, you increase the effectiveness of chemical 10%. So, I mean, heat is real important in cleaning. So anyway, it's what you can afford. Then the next thing is the size of the tank. So if you're a big high volume shop or you're a big high volume car wash, it's got a lot of express carpet shampoos going on and so forth, you're going to want a big tank. And about the biggest you can buy is, I think, 12 gallons in the portable units, because you don't want to run out of solution while you're working. I mean, that in a detail shop, you know, even if you got a 3-gallon or a 5-gallon machine and you're doing a lot of work, and all of a sudden in the middle of the day you run out of solution, everything stops and you got to refill the thing, and so it becomes a time issue. So you want to look at how big a tank you need to try to keep you going, at least to keep you going until noon, where you might break, and then you can refill it at noontime. But they'll run, you can buy 1 gallon, 2 gallon, 3 gallons are in the small range. And then they jump up to 5 or 6 gallons. Then they might jump up to 9 to 12 gallons. And those are about, and so you have to kind of decide, you know, how big a machine you want. So it's budget, it's size of tank. The next thing would be heat. And there's two kinds of ways of heating solution. One would be a tank heater, where you pour the solution in the tank. The tank heater heats it up. The downside of that is that it takes, you know, sometimes 15-20 minutes for the solution to heat up. So again, if you run out of solution, then you got to refill. It's going to take an additional 15 minutes for the solution to heat up. The other are inline heaters, which are kind of instant heaters. So they're basically an aluminum core, which has these electric rods going through that, and the rods heat the aluminum, and they have channels that the solution flows through and heats it immediately. The downside of inline heaters is that if you're busy and you're running a lot of solution through the like in an express carpet shampoo in a car wash, where they're doing, you know, tremendous numbers of shampoos. But even in a detail shop, if you're busy and you're going, you know, one guy to the next doing the interiors, you cool the heater down. So that's the good side of a tank heater. Once it heats up to, say, whatever temperature it is that it may heat up to, then you've got constant heat until you run out of solution. So when you look at inline heaters, you want to look at wattage. Probably the smallest inline heater I'm aware of is 600 watts. And there are some heaters that go up to 2400 or 2400 watts. So you want to look at what kind of how many watt heater are you getting for the money? You know, it's got a heater, that's one thing, but it's kind of like, well, a car's got an engine. Well, what is it? Is it a 4-cylinder, a 6-cylinder, a V6, a V8? You know, has it got turbo on it? You know, it's the same thing when you look at heaters. You want to look at what kind of a heater and how hot is it going to get.
Got it.
The next thing you want to look at is the size of the vacuum motor.
Okay.
So there basically are 2-stage vacuum motors and there's 3-stage vacuum motors. Now, I'm not that much of an engineer, but I know that in some situations, a 2-stage motor, which only has 2 impellers, sometimes performs better than a 3-stage motor. So, but typically when you look at just portable extractors with a single motor, if you got a 3-stage, which is a 3-impeller motor, you're going to get more lift or more suction than you would with a 2-stage. Now, the one thing that I want to caution detailers about is that they'll see some units that got dual 2-stage motors. They think, oh man, 2-stage motor, I'm going to get dual the suction or the lift. Well, that's not true. And again, it's a scientific thing. Is what they do is they wire the 2 motors in series, that's called. It doesn't give you me, it might increase the capacity by 10%. But the reality is it's not done to give you double the suction or lift. It's done in the professional industry because sometimes if they're using a portable machine to clean a landing up a flight of stairs, or they're cleaning stairways and they can't get their equipment up to the second level, they'll increase the length of the hose. Well, what happens is when you increase the length of the hose in a vacuum or an extractor, you lose the lift and suction. So by having two motors in series, you protect the initial suction or lift of that motor. So I just caution detailers to be, and car wash operators, to not be sucked in by buying a dual motor unit and believing that you're going to get double the suction. That's not true. So the 3-stage motor typically is the best motor to get if you can. The smaller units, the 1 and 2 and 3 gallon units, generally don't have room for a larger vacuum motor. So most of them are 2-stage, and they'll have maybe a 600. Some of them might have a 1,000-watt heater, which is very good. So we got budget, we got size of tank, we got heater, we've got vacuum motor, and then it's hose. Do you need some of the cheaper units or less expensive units offer you like an 8-foot hose, some 10. Typically, the best length is somewhere between 12 and 15 feet. And you want a good quality hose like we have in the car wash industry. And then you look at the nozzles. Some are made of plastic because they're lighter and they're less expensive. The good advantage of them is that you can see the solution that you're vacuuming up. So that tells you that you're evacuating the oily soil and the dirt that was left in. But typically the stainless steel is the best one. It doesn't wear out, constant rubbing over the carpets or fabric upholstery. So, that's the thing. And then I always recommend that people get a stainless steel unit with a view window in it. Because that way they can see what they're evacuating, because they're really guessing if they can't see what they're evacuating.
So final question for you here, Bud, is what about these vapor steamers we see on the market? What is this equipment's level of effectiveness and safety on carpets and upholstery?
Well, they're really they came out of Italy and Europe. That's where they that's where they originated from. They've been around a while. If you look at the websites of the Italian manufacturers, you'll see that almost all of their video deals with hard surfaces. They use them on tile floors, in bathrooms, for toilets, for bathtubs, glass, that kind of thing, cabinets. They use a lot of Formica cabinets in Europe. So they really weren't designed initially to be used on soft surfaces. However, they do work. I think the thing that what I always have said about using a vapor steamer on carpets and upholstery is, again, if what we said was true, that 85% of the soil is dry and 15% is oily, then you still got a vacuum. And the other problem is, so you have oily soil and you hit it with steam. Well, as I ask a lot of guys that are advocates of vapor steamers on cleaning carpets, I said, where does the soil go? Well, what do you mean? Well, I said, you got 15% of the soil is oily. If you take a vapor steamer to it, what does it do? Well, it melts it, gets it right off. But where does it go? Where does it go, Joe?
Right in the carpet and the
It goes in.
fabric, I would
It has
assume.
to. It stays. It stays in the backing. They are offering today. I see that, and they did back in my day too. They did one they said was an extractor. I didn't find it to be particularly effective, and we didn't really sell very many of them. But again, we were in on the beginning, and people weren't buying them. The younger new detailers today seem to be buying them like mad. And they like on the hard surfaces on an interior, the vinyl, the door panels, the dashboards, that type of thing. They glass. They really like them. The thing you have to be careful of, I think, which has always been the case in detailing NK, with all the electronics that are in cars today, you got to be really careful where you're blowing that steam if you're hitting the controls for the air conditioner and the heater and the radio and all
Sure.
the dash. You and the problem is you sometimes don't realize you've damaged anything until the
Right.
customer goes home and he goes to turn something on and it doesn't work. So you have to be when you ask the question of what are the pros and cons, you have to be really careful of using them. The other thing that always bothered me was if you're in a high volume shop, if you've got 2 or 3 days and you got 4 or 5 guys working and you're busy, and you only got one extractor and you only got one vapor steamer, you got to have an awfully good manager who can make sure that 2 or 3 guys don't end up needing the extractor or the vapor steamer at the same time. I'll tell you, they're tremendously effective in getting rid of stains. Like if you get shaggy carpet or plush carpet matted down, like where under the accelerator pedal, and it gets really matted, and you can shampoo and you can extract and you can scrub. You'll never get, but you take a vapor steamer to that, and it literally melts all of that out. So they're fabulous with that. And there's a method of cleaning red dye stains where you put the stain remover on the red dye. You take a damp white towel and you lay it over the stain. Then you take a vapor steamer and you spray it into the white towel. Now, guys in the old days would take a steam iron. They'd actually get their wife's steam iron and they'd put it over that. And what that creates is what they call heat transfer. Right. So when the stain remover liquefies the stain again, and then you put that heat, the heat draws it right up into and it's a really effective way of getting rid of stains. In the carpet and upholstery cleaning business, they always advocate that people become experts at stain removing and they can create their own side business, because a lot of guys can't take stains out. And that's the way I see it in the detail business. Guys in the detail business give up too early because they don't know how to get rid of stains. But one of the ways to shortcut stain removing is, in addition to using the right stain remover, is to use a vapor steamer. They're just fabulous for that. Mm-hmm. There's nothing on the market.
Understood. Well, there's certainly, pardon the pun, more than at a surface level when it comes to cleaning carpet and upholstery. And you've certainly made the case that requires a deep cleaning with a lot of the equipment and processes that you've recommended today. So, Bud, it's always great to see you, and thank you again for lending your expertise in this area of detailing.
My pleasure. Thank you. Anytime.